Hi everyone, this is Catherine with Sunny Hill Flower Farm, and I want to talk to you all about worm control in your garden, whether it's vegetables or it is flowers. Last year in the fall, so last year was my first year, and last year we in the fall we had a major infestation with worms, and all of my flower heads, they would just eat the inside out. So if you're experiencing this, you would know that this is a really huge challenge, and this is something you're gonna have to fight. So I didn't catch it till way later because I didn't know it was something that I needed to look for. So if you're going through this, you probably didn't know it was something you're gonna look for. And what happened to me was I didn't know it, and I wasn't prepared for it. And so when I caught it, I feel like it was way too late. And so if you're experiencing this, it will be probably pretty hard to fight. So I was kind of in panic mode. I didn't know how to solve it. So it was definitely a lot of research and how am I going to figure out how to do this. So if you're experiencing this, it's probably going to be a challenge if it's a little too late in the season of the worm infestation. You're not catching them right as you see it. So mine was probably happening for a few weeks before I found out, and so was definitely not something I was on guard for. What we used was a BT worm killer. So what happens is you spray it on the leaves and then the worms eat it and they die. So you can get a spray bottle. So I got a spray bottle first, and of course my huge flower farm, it wasn't enough. So I got this and I put this in a spray bottle. But what it says is make sure you put it on the top of the leaves, on the bottom of the leaves. And so this is crucial because if you get it everywhere, wherever they eat, they're gonna die. And so just take your time, really invest the time to spray every area of that plant. And with, a sprayer, like a hand pump sprayer, it's gonna be really challenging and it's gonna take a lot of work, but invest that time. So when I caught it last year, it was a little too far gone. So I ended up cutting all my flower heads off. I did this and it still didn't work. I mean, they just devastated everything I had. And basically I tore everything out earlier, or I couldn't use as many of my flowers. So this past spring, I knew what I was looking for. I didn't know it was a thing that happened early in the spring because I started later last year. So I didn't experience this new spring, cooler weather, and having these worms come and infest my garden. And I went out and I started spraying, and I took the time, I invested the time to spray all of the plant underneath it, and did that weekly spray, and I could beat it every time. So I strongly suggest that as soon as you find this out is happening in your garden, and get this BT, and you just be very scheduled. And I think that's one of the things that I would strongly urge you to do is just be scheduled, take the time. Fertilizer is easy, you just spray it on, not heavy, but this needs to be heavy, needs to be consistent, and you need to get that whole plant saturated with this. And that way you can gain control over the infestation. So I had some kale plants, like a lot of kale plants, and I just kept having worm infestation with these kale plants. And so I ended up saying, this is too much work. It's not really affecting anywhere else in my garden, but this could spread easily with caterpillars and mites and different things. So I ended up just removing all of that kale because I just removed the problem plant. And so I've had that with amaranth. That was a big cause of the moths, because that's what happens. The moths come first, they lay the eggs, and then you have these hatched worms, and then they start eating everything. So kind of what I did with that kale was I just removed the problem. So if maybe there's a plant that's causing problems and you I don't have time to invest and keep on top of it. I have to invest the time for something else. So maybe just get rid of that plant. Just forget it. Maybe it's not worth the trouble of having to maintain that if you don't have the time. And then it ends up taking up the rest of your garden, and the worms start devouring everything, and you're like, well, I should have just gotten rid of the plant, and that might have been an easier way to solve the problem. So things you're going to be looking for if you're do I have worms? Do I not have worms? Would be definitely flower heads just being like weirdly falling apart, or like the center inside of the flower is just like disappearing, like it's going away. And definitely you're gonna see the worms. I mean, it'll take a little bit. I think that's one of the things, you don't notice it at first, and sometimes they're green and so they match in and you just don't see them. So these are one of those things that you'll notice weird things, but like if you notice something weird is going on in your garden, take note and like invest the time to figure that out, because that is so important. When you let things go, it'll be bad. So right now we're in the depths of summer and we're experiencing lots of grasshoppers, and that's another thing I'm going to delve into. If you're experiencing that, they kind of show the same signs as like caterpillars, worms might do. So definitely we'll talk about that and how to overcome that as well. And just because you're not seeing maybe like things working right away, like I'm not seeing the worms dying right away, or I'm not seeing the grasshoppers, you might see effects like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't eaten like it was, but it may take a couple days, it may take a week. So be diligent, even if you're not seeing that success right away. It's hard for me to do because it's like, am I wasting my time? Is this actually working? I've been there, I understand that. But take the time, invest the time, be diligent on it, because you will see the effects of that, even if it takes you longer than you had hoped. So I have been fighting this grasshopper thing, it feels like, for 2 months, and I'm pretty sick of it by now. And so for me, it's kind of like, well, okay, but then today I just realized they're actually dying. Like, I'm watching them die as I'm working in the garden. And so I think it's hard sometimes to wait that couple weeks where you're like, is it really working? But just invest the time, because it probably is working, but you're not able to see it quite yet. And the fruition of your labor is not quite coming out yet. So just wait on that timing and wait for it to actually happen. And maybe wait a couple weeks and it's not giving you the benefits. I've used some products and they did not give me what I thought I was gonna get.